Hello and welcome to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director here at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today here on June 27th. Summer is finally with us, It sounds like. Also, a great pleasure to be joined here in the studio by Paula Kamperman, who is the Outreach Program Manager for the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance. Paula, welcome to GNAT.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure.
Great to have you with us today. To talk to us a little bit about recycling and waste disposal and some changes that are coming along that a lot of people I think are going to want to know more about.
Yes.
Almost a year to the day from now, food scraps will be banned from landfills and folks will be doing a lot more composting perhaps than they may be used to at present. So we want to bring them up to speed on how that's going to work and a few other issues that are involved in that. But first I just thought maybe just to get us started, tell us a little bit about the Solid Waste Alliance. So what does it do? What's its purpose? When was it formed?
Certainly, Andrew. Well, essentially, it's formed through an interlocal contract in 2015 to help its residents, participating towns, reduce the solid waste in landfills. So this is by getting education outreach to businesses and schools and residents about how to achieve the Alliance's goals, which is essentially reduce the amount of disposable rate by 25% at 2020 from where it was at 2015, and also increase the diversion rate by 50%. Getting that out of the landfills. So the Alliance is made up of 13 towns: Arlington, Bennington, Dorset, Glastonbury, Manchester, Pownell, Rupert, Sandgate, Searsburg, Shaftesbury, Stamford, Sunderland, and Woodford. Collectively, we all work together to reduce our solid waste, and my job is to get out to the community and get that word out to everybody.
So what is the state of recycling in Vermont these days? I mean, we hear a lot about how, landfill capacity is kind of beginning to finally, max out. Recycling is also, that as an industry, is going through some challenges. Set the background for us. What's going on?
Yeah, challenging is the perfect word to describe what's going on. Right now, we've had some big changes in the market in the last couple of years. When I say market, I'm talking about recycling market, where the materials that you put in your recycling bin go through what is called materials recycling facility and then is sorted and put into a baled situation and sold off as a commodity to another country or another concern that buys it. Those values have dropped by 60 to 65%. So what happens is the market is not what it used to be. So there is a stockpiling up of these raw materials. Coincidentally, at the same time, we have countries that are not taking those materials. China in particular, which was the United States' biggest customer, taking upwards of 50-55% of some of our materials by bale overseas in container ships up until 2018, then put a halt to it and said, we don't need any more of yours, we don't want any more of yours. The only way we're going to take yours is if the contamination rate is down below 0.5%, which with our current recycling systems is almost impossible to get that low of a contamination rate. And when we say contamination rate, that's like things that go in the recycling bin that shouldn't. Plastic bags, tubs of things that are filled with food that are not cleaned out, materials like hoses, raw metals, things like that that have to get sorted out. And sometimes it just isn't clean enough and they don't want to sort through it. It's a hazardous job to do. And the people in China are realizing that it is something that they don't want the risk of either. So clean material is something that they want. They have enough of their own internal material to work with, and they can buy from countries that give them what they need. So it falls back on us to get creative about what we're going to do with all this surplus of recycling that we have right now.
So is it a case that just ordinary folks who do recycle, they just have to be a little more careful about what they're can't be as cavalier as about, we'll just recycle this, even though I'm not really sure that it's recyclable? It's
as well as just being more thoughtful about how much consumption we do. They get on the front end. So if we're thinking about how we conduct our lives, our system has gone through such revolutionary changes in the last 50 years since World War II, where we would routinely reuse, resort, repurpose things that we had in our lives, glass, metal. During World War II, they had scrap reclamation programs where they get things back into the system to help the military front. And then by the time of end of World War II, when we had rationing lifted, this period of prosperity occurred where it became convenient to take on these items of convenience where you just use it once and throw it away. It gave people just greater convenience. And as we fast forward, as markets became more mechanized and getting one stream not recycling, but consumption, it's all going one direction, we weren't putting it back into reuse. So what happens is we have a lot of raw materials building up just out of habit. We're very good at habits. And so what happens is the glass and the metal that has been now replaced by plastic and aluminum has been a boon for the materials manufacturing consortium, because they get all that stuff lower weight. It goes out to the public at less cost to them. Materials that they've been using to package items now hold product shelf life longer. They're made with multi-compositional materials, which doesn't recycle. We have plastics that are not recyclable in the sense that there isn't a market for them. So the stuff ends up in the landfill. And as this sort of becomes a problem exponentially, we're literally surrounded by trash. And I know people have probably seen on film different areas of the world where it's just, they're knee deep in trash because they don't have the infrastructure to be able to manage that type of system. We get into that as well because we're getting into situations where we're getting so convenient we don't have an end run. What are we going to do with the materials at the end of its cycle? So we have to rethink our whole focus about how we're going to manage the materials as we consume them to get them back into reuse again or back into the same form, either recycled or repurposed.
Interesting. Well, what are some of the things that people may have misconceptions about in terms of what is and what isn't recyclable? You sent us over here one little chart here that it shows some items like some paper items and containers that can be recycled, but things that can't be are things like plastic bags, batteries, scrap metal, clothing, electronics.
Right. What it is it doesn't go in our bin. We have recycling that has our bin, and that is essentially the mixed paper, the cardboard, newspaper, magazines, empty metal and glass containers, aluminum foil, which you can bound up in a ball as long as it's bigger than 2 inches, so you can collect the foil pans, the tin foil over your grill or whatever you use, as long as it's clean and dry, bound it up in a ball, and then any number 1 and 2 plastics as long as they're clean and dry. What we don't want to see are plastic bags, like these kinds of things, because they get hung up in the machinery. The cogs that sift through all the stuff at the MRF, the materials recycling facility, it gets wound up and it's like, it just stops it, literally. Batteries are a fire hazard. We can't put those in at all. They are actually recycled in a separate program that is through an Extended Producer Responsibility Program, EPR is what it's called. And there are take-back programs throughout a lot of retail places like Home Depot and hardware stores will take them back, and they have because they have precious metals inside of them, the primary source batteries such as alkaline batteries, button, cell phone, rechargeable batteries, they can be taken back in those retail places to get back into the cycle. But if we put them in the recycling bin, they don't recycle, and they pose a fire hazard. Clothing.
We shouldn't just throw them into the garbage, right?
No, because it leaches out into areas where it can affect groundwater, and it's there forever. It's not going to go away. Clothing is the same sort of thing. It's a textile, and we want to think about, is there ways to repurpose it? If obviously it's the clothing that you don't like anymore, it can be sent to a place like Goodwill. It can be given at a swap meet. Some places do swaps, clothing swaps, or a consignment shop. Also, if it's too worn, hey, a rag, paint, drop cloth, whatever you need to use it. I have repurposed countless things for that same purpose. But it's only in the end. And there's some clothing take-back programs that actually take the rag type and repurpose it into something else. So we just want to try to keep that out of the landfill as well. Obviously, no electronics. Those all have components in there that aren't going to break down. And as we had talked before this taping, there may be a big sea change as we come about with this new 5G wireless innovation that we have, it's going to basically render all of the other items that we're currently holding obsolete. And there could be a tsunami of the amount of electronic waste that is then, having to be disposed of or just no longer
So that
useful.
would be like phones or iPads or
anything that has a wireless connectivity, essentially. So.
Wow. Well, as many folks know, the Vermont legislature passed a plastic bag ban earlier this year in the legislature, and we have a whole pile of bags over here. What is going to happen with that legislation? What is the effect of that all going to be? Is it just simply going to be that, I think most people just think of it in terms of, I go to the supermarket to get some groceries, I'm not going to get one of those convenient little plastic bags to put my groceries in. Easy workaround to that is bring your own bag or a cloth bag or a paper bag or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there more to that bill?
Yeah, it went through a lot of changes as it got put together because there was lots of things they had to think through. But essentially, it's going to ban all plastic bags at grocery retail outlet, or not grocery, but just all retail outlets, as well as stores. But they will allow the smaller plastic bags that would use for greeting cards, pharmaceutical sales, and small hardware like nuts and bolts sales, that sort of thing. That'll be exempt, as well as dry cleaning bags that go over your garments. And in addition to that, all styrofoam, polystyrene, the expandable polystyrene that we use for cups and food covering, things for takeout. Exempt from that, though, will be the trays that you have for your meat and fish in the grocery store and items that are manufactured outside the state of Vermont. So like your cup ramen noodles, those are those are still allowed. So that's pretty much what they're going to do. So when you go to the grocery store, it's, not the time that you'll be seeing bags. You'll have to bring your own or pay 10 cents for a paper bag.
And that takes full effect, next year sometime?
Yes, July 1st.
Okay. Now, so speaking of the plastic covering that you get your dry cleaning back in, is that plastic recyclable?
Yes. In fact, it's something that I'm focusing on this year to try to educate more folks about the plastic film recycling. It's the stuff that the grocery bags that we rely on and all sorts of things to take our produce home in. It's all recyclable and goes right back to the grocery stores where you see those bins at the entry that you put in. I brought some samples here just to show you briefly what it is. It encompasses quite a few pieces of plastic that can cross our paths here. Think of a Ziploc bag. That is recyclable. You'd want to remove the Ziploc first. That's not. You have large case lot packaging for toilet paper, bottled waters, diapers, sanitary supplies, all that, whether it be colored or clear, is all recyclable in that waste stream. The packing pillows you receive in shipments, all that's recyclable as well. Bubble wrap in forms of packing and shipping. So like your Amazon Prime, this is all recyclable. You want to remove the labels, shipping labels first.
Okay.
All that is recyclable. And bread sleeves, you've got bread. And produce for apples. Interesting enough, a lot of people don't know the sleeves inside cereal boxes actually are recyclable. Right. So you have your box of grape nuts in the morning or whatever.
Too.
The box, flat fold right into your recycling bin.
So you can just throw the box in the bag.
Yep, this
right
goes
in.
No, this doesn't go in the recycling bin. This goes in the separate one that goes to the grocery store. That's the trick. These bags, this plastic doesn't go in your recycling bin.
Oh, okay.
You just start a bag and fill it with more bags, and then take it back to your grocery store and put it in the bin.
So now I need a third box.
Yeah. But this is lightweight, and it's something that can collect over a long period of time if you want to. Things that shipping, like here, LL Bean. This is a recyclable bag. I took all the shipping labels off of it and just cut them out so it can recycle. Same thing with, I have a small rodent at home for pets in our household. This is the bedding bag it comes in, and that's my bag that I throw all the other bags into to take back to the retailer. Now, interestingly enough, these things that you have that crinkle, that you have salad packaging in, like salad mix. This had grapes. It is not recyclable in that bag program. It's made of a different type of plastic. So stuff that has a lot of crinkle to it, like this, it's not recyclable. So that has to, unfortunately, go to the waste.
Now, do a lot of these bags, do they have some kind of signal or insignia or thing to say, hey, this is recyclable?
Actually, it will.
But no, I'm not? Or, is there some easy to kind of determine way to...
You'll see on these,
Like that
they'll
out.
have, here's a perfect, it's a really broad print. And it
Okay.
says recycled at your retailer there. You see
All
that?
right, okay.
They'll have some others that'll have the triangle of arrows going around, but no description or instruction underneath. That's not necessarily recyclable at all.
'Cause it seems like it would be great if it was really clearly stamped someplace highly visible that,
Yes. Often
this is the
a
way to
number
dispose of
4,
this.
those are the ones that are usually in this category, but it is also other numbers as well. So when in doubt, throw it out. Here, this says HDPE2, which is also recyclable. So these can go in, but they're not the same number. So all of that is recyclable. And if
So-
we can get that out, that is a huge thing because it's something that
Yeah.
people don't think about.
Right.
And it's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And it is simple to get out of the waste stream. It'll cut down the contamination because I know that the people that operate the MRFs have said this stuff is bad. It's everywhere, and it's what clogs up the mechanization of it.
So another big component of all this is the composting side of things.
Yes.
Which, again, as part of that bill we were talking about a moment ago about the plastic bag ban, July 1st, 2020, so the folks, let's see what happens there. Food scraps will be banned from landfills, and haulers have to offer food scrap protection collection. How does one go about composting? If you're just an ordinary person, like maybe you have a backyard that you can work with or whatever, or let's take the two cases: someone has a backyard and someone who doesn't.
Okay.
How does one go about composting in a intelligent way?
Well, there's many ways you can do that, actually. You can compost, even if you have absolutely no backyard, you can compost in a bin outside. You can even do some worm composting in an apartment if you want, which is a little more detailed, I won't cover today, but is essentially a bin with worms that eat your food scraps and create compost for you. You just do it in the back of your pantry on the floor. But for most households in areas where you have like enough for a composting bin, we have a compost sale bin sale once a year where we try to offer folks at a very reasonable price. It's offset by a grant. Compost bins and kitchen compost bins to collect food scraps. Now come July 1st, 2020, what's going to happen is people are not going to be able to put their food scraps in the trash. The exception is if you compost at home, you can still put your bones and your meat in the trash because those require higher temperatures than a home-style composting bin can maintain to kill off the pathogens and the microbes to get it down to good compost. So that can be thrown in the trash. If you're taking your compost after July 1st to the transfer stations, there are over 100 transfer stations in the state that take composting right now. You can take that and bring your bones and your meat, and they get it to a high enough temperature, not a problem. And you just give them all your food scraps. And it's a great opportunity to just create the compost you can use for your houseplants, fortify your yard, gardens, that sort of thing. And it is something that we're going to be, it's a change. You really got to change your thinking about it. Instead of throwing it down the disposal or in the trash, it needs to go in a little bin, maybe in the kitchen with a seal top to keep the fruit flies and things away from it, and then just every few days go dump it in your compost pile. And your compost pile is really just a 3-to-1 ratio of 3 types browns to 1 type green. But before getting all wonky into that, there's a lot of resources that can give you information. Our website, bcswavt.org, the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance, gives some information on how to compost. Also, the Vermont UVM Extension has a great master compost class. I've taken it. They're having enrollment again in September. That starts in November, and it's an online course that goes 6 weeks. And you have interactive teachings and coursework that gives you everything you need to know about composting and become specialized at it, whether you just want to understand how to do composting in your own backyard or get involved in a community compost project where it's a more involved system of 3 large bins and you've got a big setting for a whole neighborhood per se. But it is an opportunity to learn more about it. And it's great because getting that out of the waste stream and out of our landfills will cut down the methane substantially in the coming years.
So what do you say to the person who says, well, that all sounds great, and I get it, and I'm an environmentalist too, and I want to help, but I'm also lazy, and I for the last 9,000 years I've been throwing my food scraps into the garbage, and I don't really feel like changing. And so what's the enforceability of it?
There isn't at the current time. The idea behind it is to make sure people understand it's good for the planet. We also know that there's a possibility there might be some pushback from haulers about whether or not they're actually going to offer curbside service as mandated by the law. That may change. We don't know. If it does, that means we need to get also more creative to offer options for people, whether it be, possibly doing something at a farmer's market. So when you come to pick up your vegetables on a weekend at the farmer's market, you bring your food scraps and a farmer takes it off your hands. Or potentially a CSA or some other outlet where people get together, maybe a roving truck through a neighborhood that does it, periodically as opposed to every week, because it's going to change the business model for the haulers, and that's going to be a challenge. Everyone's got to, roll up their sleeves and put this together. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, because it sounds like, the stakes are fairly high. That we kind of really need to get with the program here.
Yes.
And I mean, what happens if people just sort of blow it off and kind of, feel like...
I hope not. It was a universal recycling law was unanimously, voted into law. So it was something that everyone thought was the right thing to do. And we've seen it coming. So we're all trying to... It's hard. It is a heavy lift. Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, really interesting stuff here. And, again, I guess there really isn't much of an alternative because... as we said at the start of the show, landfills in Vermont and really probably across the country are kind of, getting pretty well filled up, and really hard to open up new ones. And so we have to really kind of, be a lot more intelligent, I guess, about how we dispose of that stuff that we're no longer going to use anymore, like clothing or plastic bags or whatever else. It's just really interesting, some of the things that are and are not
yes, Vermont is actually on the leading edge of the Extended Producer Responsibility Program, which you see on that list there.
Right.
These items here, fluorescent bulbs, thermostats, paint, e-waste, batteries, all that is managed through manufacturers, trade associations, and going concerns that work to get that out of the waste stream. So there are retailers and other organizations that work to get this stuff out. They leave it for you. So for instance, you can take your paint back to Sherwin-Williams and bring it back to them when you're done. You didn't have to buy it there, just bring it back to them.
That's a great question, because I'm glad you said that, because I got a whole pile of paint at home in my basement that I'm going, what am I going to do?
Yeah, as long as it's architectural paint, not aerosol cans.
It's old, it's no longer useful. I wouldn't use it anymore. I can just bring it back to a paint store, and they have to take it back?
If it's liquid, if it's a solid, they don't take it. If it's liquid, they'll take it, yeah.
Okay. What if it's solid?
Then you save that for the Household Hazardous Waste Day.
Oh, okay.
Which is twice a year. We just had one May 18th. We'll have another one in September.
And that's
up in Dorset.
Up in Dorset. Oh, okay. You also have one down in Bennington, too.
That's the one that we had in May, yes.
Oh,
We have it
okay.
twice a year in two parts of the county to make sure we get as many people as
And
possible.
do we have a date yet for that one in Dorset?
September 14th, I think. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
We'll definitely get it out there, though. I'll put another PSA out as I did for the past one. We'll do one here on the station.
And just one last thing before we go here. You mentioned earlier about the whole e-waste, computer, television sets, I guess, and whatever else. Are we equipped yet to handle this tsunami of now obsolete electronic devices and components? And I mean, that sounds like a massive challenge. I mean, I know that there's been e-waste drives going on throughout, but wow, that sounds like a big problem.
Yeah, it's something where we all have to work together to make it happen. It's an opportunity that we have to rise to, really, the challenge. We have to rethink the way we do things. It can't be the same old where we just discard stuff. We have to be more thoughtful, I think. Everything's finite in that realm. We just can't. I don't have an answer. It's going to be something larger than Vermont as a nation, well, really as a world, because everyone's going to adopt the same type of technology.
Yeah.
And we really have to think about how we approach this.
Right. All right. Well, Paula, thank you so much for being with us today to shed light on this multifaceted, multi-layered problem here. It's really quite interesting. It's certainly got me thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But that's good.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you all for being with us as well. Really great to have you with us today. Hope you found the show interesting and informative. I want to thank again Paula Kamperman, who is the Outreach Program Manager for the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance. And I guess go to their website for more information.
Thank you.
About that. Have a great day. We'll see you the next time.